So we see some symbolism here in, I believe it's real clear that the woman in chapter 12, verse 1 and 2 represents Israel, clothed with the sun, the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. Think about the dream that was given to Joseph, and also the 12 tribes. Verse 5, she brings forth a male child, and she flees to the wilderness. And of course, the male child, Jesus Christ, he was a Jew, and the nation flees to the wilderness. Some people believe that this is when they were scattered, and then they were all over the place. And then, of course, Israel became a barren wasteland, as the writer, what was his name? Oh, man. He went to Israel, and he basically documented what he saw, and he said it was Mark Twain. And very good,
yeah. Whoa! Awesome! Redemption.
Mark Twain went there and documented what he saw in the 1800s, and he said, he basically said it was a barren wasteland. He said we walked for miles and miles, even days, and we did not even see any living thing. Not a person, not an animal, not a plant, nothing. But when God's people came back to the land, just like it says in Ezekiel, I believe, chapter 37, the desert bloomed like a rose. And I have pictures, I don't have them on this handout. I have pictures of Israel when Mark Twain described it, and there was photographs. And then you see that same area years later, and it is like some of the same places that were barren are like looking out the window at the Kahalu'u mountains and the green, lush valleys of Kahalu'u. People think that Israel is kind of an ugly, barren land. I've been there. It's beautiful. I mean, it is so abundant that this little nation the size of Colorado, I mean, if I was to just make a map of that area of the world, if you have like Africa down here and Egypt, you have the Sinai Peninsula, and you have all this area, you have Saudi Arabia, you have all of this land. This right here, this little speck in the middle, is Israel. All these Arab countries have all of this land. They're saying that that Israel is that the Israelites are occupying their territory, illegally occupying their territory. That's not true. Anyway, the place is beautiful. It's a beautiful country, and this little speck right here supplies all of Europe. It's like the top 2 or 3 producer of produce that supplies Europe, and flowers. All of these agricultural products, so much of it comes from Israel. Some people say it's the most fertile land in the world. And another fertile land would be like California. But in this fertile crescent of land, it is super, super fertile. And you have the way Israel is able to, they're the ones that invented drip irrigation. And their technology is so elite. They're the ones that I think their technology in computers they lead the nation with computer technology. They got one of the top 5 most powerful militaries in the world. This little nation now. They got one of the top economies in the world. They're definitely a top 10 in all of these areas. This little nation. They invented that drip irrigation where they found out, and it was all by accident, but God has just blessed them. There's a guy that went on a trip. He forgot to turn on his timer to water his tree, and he thought, oh my goodness, and he went on vacation. He thought the thing was going to be dead. He came back, and it was blue. It was more, the thing was so plush and green and life, more abundant than he's ever seen it. And he thought, what had happened? In the pipe, there was this little drip going right to the top of the roots. And so they found out, instead of just watering and all the water, a lot of it evaporated, not getting to the plant, they just put a little bit of water right on the roots. Drip irrigation. And now that's what a lot of farmers use. Saves water, the plants get more water, more healthier, and this and that. They also are they lead the nation, I think, invented the desalinization of water. They take it out from the ocean and they make fresh water out of it. When you go to Israel, like being in Hawaii, we have good water. When I went from here to Oklahoma, I couldn't drink the water. Then after a while, you get used to it. But it just, I mean, I don't know where they get the water from, and they clean it or whatever. It's horrible. And then after a while, you get used to it because you're used to all the toxins and whatever else is in there. And then other places, there's some places in the country you don't want to drink the water. In fact, they'll tell you don't drink the water, like the tap water. But in Israel, you can drink the tap water because they take it out, they pump it out of the Mediterranean, and they're so advanced with the desalinization of water. And you figure, why don't we do that in Hawaii, being surrounded by water? Because it costs a lot of money to do that. But they have gotten down to where they're even trying to teach Jordan how to do it. That's why Jordan is like, they're like cool with Israel, because Israel's, they're learning a lot from them. Even Saudi Arabia, even the United Arab Emirates. There's a lot of allies now that Israel. Some of them are even wish them happy Hanukkah. I mean, it's amazing some of the allies that there is now. And with the peace agreement under the other administration, that President Trump not only moving the embassy, our embassy to Jerusalem, a lot of people followed suit, but there's a lot of peace agreements. Not the one that the Antichrist is going to make. Some people thought that was the case. It wasn't out yet. But they do that desalinization of water, which is such, because that's, an important need, right?
Yes.
Physically, that's man's most important physical need is water, right? And then also, they're working on, I don't know if they got this down yet, is they're able to take water out of the air.
How do you do that?
They're able to take just air and make water out of it. One guy described it like this, this preacher, Amir Sarfati. He says that you sneeze, we turn it into water, and then we drink it.
Wow.
Fresh water. But they're just because in the air there's humidity, right? And so they're able to make it into drinking water. So they're that advanced technology. Why? God has blessed them. If I was to read you the list of all the Nobel Prize winners, all the smartest people, the most educated, the most college professors, you would be amazed at how many percentage-wise are Jews, and yet they make up just a fraction of the population of the world, and yet they're that advanced. Why? God is blessed. They're His people.
Right.
That's right.
So anyway, you see in chapter 12 that the woman represents Israel. She flees to the wilderness. The devil or the dragon. So the dragon is Satan himself. The male child is Jesus. Michael the archangel is Michael the archangel. See how easy Revelation is? And in this chapter, Michael the archangel fights with the... See, people think that it's all about it's a fight between the devil and Jesus. No. Jesus just sends Michael the archangel. It's... When Jesus returns, the battle is going to be very short. We ain't even going to have to do anything. Just the word of God as a sword cometh forth out of his mouth and everyone dies.
Yes.
So this chapter, Satan is cast out of heaven permanently and limited to the earth. And of course, he is not happy about that. So he's going to go after the believers on the earth. And of course, he's going to go after God's people. He can't no longer touch the church has been raptured, so he's going to go after the people of God on the earth, the people of Israel. So, and of course, that could also be the reason why a lot of Jews turn to Christ, because we know, as the Bible does promise or does say in Romans chapter 11, that all Israel shall be saved. You cannot take that word Israel to mean church. When it says Israel, I believe the Bible means Israel.
Right.
And if it means church, then why would the Bible say, and all the church shall be saved? Aren't the church already saved? So, all Israel shall be saved. All true Israel, by the way. Not just those that are Jewish by blood. They've got to be true Jews, which means they got to be saved. All the real true Israel. 1/3. Because what's going to happen to 2/3 in Revelation ultimately? They'll all be wiped away. All be wiped out. Right now in the Gennesaret, which is like the Jewish Supreme Court, about 1/3 of the Gennesaret is favorable or sensitive or soft-hearted to Christianity, but 1/3, 2/3 are not. That gives you an idea there. The Bible makes it clear that thousands of Jewish people will become believers, and a great host of Gentiles will get saved. In Revelation chapter 14. The devil will persecute the tribulation saints. We know there are going to be people that get saved during the tribulation, Jews and Gentiles. The Bible says an untold multitude, or a multitude that's innumerable. And the Jewish believers of the end times will flee, or these that are persecuted, will flee into the wilderness. Many people believe that Petra will be the place that they will hide. Petra is not in Israel. Petra is in where? Jordan. Forget. It's the next place over. Yeah, Jordan. So in Petra, it's a very it's a very defensible place. It's a place where there's only one little area that you can come in, so it's easy to guard it. And it has a rocky terrain. So a lot of people believe that that's where they're going to flee to, Petra. In fact, there are a lot of Christians that have placed tracks there. So now I've never been to Petra. I would have liked to go, but on the trip when you go to Israel, if you're going to go to Israel first, then to Jordan, it's difficult because you have your passport stamped in Israel. They say if you're going to do that, go to Petra first, then come to Israel. Otherwise, you can have a hard time. They give you a hard time, supposedly. But there were some people that did go there after our trip to Israel. They're the ones that told us after the fact, don't ever do that. But I gave them some tracts from our church. I gave them a stack of, a tract that we had bundled up with a rubber band. And I said, can you place some of our tracts over there? So they did that. They took pictures of them doing that for us. Some of the people that went. So we got some tracts over there in Petra. The dragon is angry with the woman and so goes to war with her seed. One of the themes of the Bible, there's different themes of the Bible, and one of the themes of the Bible is the seed. Why? Because in Genesis 3:15, the Bible says the seed of the woman shall crush the serpent's head. And so the devil knows that. So he has gone after the seed of the woman. Of course, the woman that's referring to Eve, her child. And at some point in time, which the Bible says in Galatians chapter 5, or is it 4? Galatians chapter 4, that in the fullness of time, he came forth made of a woman. And that's talking about the virgin birth of Jesus Christ. The seed of the woman is also referring to the virgin birth of Jesus Christ. He's the seed of the woman, and that's talking about the fact that, because we know that the seed comes from the man. But this is going to be the seed of the woman because it's going to be a virgin birth, and of course within the womb of Mary, she will conceive by the Holy Spirit, and it will be none of Joseph's seed. He will be conceived of the Holy Spirit. There will be none of Adam's blood flowing through his veins, and so there's been an attack on the seed. If you remember in Genesis chapter 6, that the Bible says the wickedness of man was great on the earth, and the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually, and he repented the Lord, and he made man on the earth. And so God destroyed everything because the devil came after the seed. And the Bible says that the sons of God, the fallen angels, came unto the daughters of men, and they produced we believe that they produced the giants that were in the land. And there was a demonic force that was all over the earth. These demons that came down, and however it worked, I know it sounds kind of sci-fi-ish, not Wi-Fi-ish. Sometimes it mix up those two. Sci-fi-ish, that these demonic creatures came down and reproduced with human women. But they possessed, I don't know how it, but there was something weird that happened. And so God said, wiped everything out. And then, of course, only Noah and his wife and his 3 sons and their wives survived. Nobody snuck in, by the way, like that one movie that I never saw. That's somebody hiding it, stowed away.
Oh my goodness. You have to put that in.
Yeah, in other translations, I don't know what had a guy that snuck in there.
Oh my goodness.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So there's always an attack on the seed. You see that in the Bible, right? Even with Abraham, and then of course he goes down into Egypt, but God protected the seed. Pharaoh and weren't allowed to do anything, and also Abimelech either when that happened with Isaac. God always protected the seed. And then what happened when Jesus is born? Again, there's an all-out attack on the seed of the children, all 2 and under, were going to be killed by Herod, right? There's always been an attack on the seed. So in the tribulation, we see the attack on the seed. Again, of course, that's the Messiah. The remnant of the seed of the woman, the Jews, there are many going to be saved in the tribulation, like I had mentioned. Satan is cast out, and he does no longer have any access to the presence of God, and he is mad. Those left behind are under the wrath of the Lamb as he opened the seals. Now they are also under the wrath of the devil as he's upset. I mean, they got everybody upset at them. It's just better to get raptured. Devil is upset, and now he moves the heart of the Antichrist to break the treaty with Israel. Now, Revelation is not just a chronological flow. When you talk about the 7 seals, part of the trumpets seem to maybe overlap that time period, because if you try to get the time frame together, it doesn't really match if you try to go one after the other. It'd be longer than 7 years. But we know this, in the middle of the tribulation period, that is when the Antichrist is going to break the covenant with Israel. So, a lot of people are trying to figure out who the Antichrist is. You know, I mean, every president is supposedly accused of being the Antichrist, just about, right? I don't know. I haven't heard anyone accuse Biden yet, though, of being the Antichrist. People are saying Trump is Antichrist, Obama was Antichrist, George Bush is Antichrist, everybody. You know, I think that there's always a potential Antichrist on the scene, because the devil doesn't know when everything's going to happen. So he probably has some ready. All he has to do is the devil is going to possess this person. But there is a description of the type of person that the Antichrist is going to be. I talked about this before. There's differences of opinions, but we know he's going to come from the Mediterranean area. That's at least it says, or that area. He's got to be Jewish, or they say he's coming from the sea, so that represents Gentiles. But I think he doesn't have to be Jewish. It's just that the Jews have to believe that he's Jewish, because they're going to think about it. The Antichrist. So he's going to have to be in place of Christ. So he's going to have to pretend to be their Messiah. All he's got to be is what they're looking for, the Messiah. Would you be deceived if someone said, "I'm the Messiah"? Hey, I'm the Messiah. Would that affect Christians?
No.
Would Christians be like, "Oh wow, oh we thought Jesus? Well, I guess it's him." No. But the Jews, they rejected Jesus as the Messiah, and they are longing and looking and waiting and anticipating the Messiah. I mean, we know Jesus is the Messiah, but they don't believe that. And if you go to Israel and you go to the Temple Institute, you will see a group of people there that are eagerly waiting for their Messiah to come. And they got the temple ready to be built. All they need is the Temple Mount. And they're waiting. They'll show you a video. And at the end of the video, the way that the music is, and the way that the video is, they're basically saying that, could this be the year? Like we're saying, could the rapture happen tonight, today, tomorrow, this week? They're saying, could this be the year, the day, the week, the month that we get to build our temple? Because they feel when they get the temple built, the Messiah's going to come right down to it. So that's what they're waiting for. All the Antichrist has to do is he just has to be what they're looking for. What are they looking for? They're looking for someone to bring peace. Israel's never has peace. I mean, just a couple of weeks ago, Hamas had just sent 1,400 missiles in Israel. So before that, they might have had a little bit of taste of peace in some ways. But especially with President Trump being the president and we being allies with Israel, it's not so much that way with this administration. It's going to get probably worse. But the Antichrist has just gotta create the peace in the Middle East. In fact, that's why a lot of people felt like that Trump was the Antichrist, because of all the peace agreements that he was starting to put in place. And then, of course, what he did with the presidency, that kind of like got people to think, oh, I guess maybe, we don't be so concerned with who the Antichrist is. Because I believe he's not going to be revealed till after we're raptured.
That's right.
He may be here. Like I said, there's a potential, because the devil doesn't know what else is going to happen. But he's gonna be someone that's going to not just cause for peace in the Middle East, but he's going to be someone that's going to build the temple. Because why are the Jews going to make a covenant with this person? They're going to love him. Why? Because he's going to give them peace. So the secular Jews, even if they're not religious, they're going to be happy because now he's made alliances, or he's promised them militarily. So they're going to be the secular Jews are going to be happy because of the peace, and then the religious Jews are going to be happy because of the temple. There's just a few things, like 3 or 4 or 5 things that he's got to be. Now, there is already in Israel, they're able to be able to trace through your DNA. You know how we got that Ancestry.com and all that? Well, they got that in Israel. So they think that they're already able, by taking your DNA, they can tell if you're Jewish, number one, and what tribe you're from. But they can't do all 12 tribes. They can only do, I think, a couple of tribes so far. One of the tribes that they can do already is Judah. So in order for them to be able to, for this Antichrist to be able to say he's Jewish, he's going to have to pass that DNA test that he's from what tribe. What tribe is Jesus from?
Judah.
So the Messiah has got to come from the tribe of Judah, right? So they already got that one. Isn't it odd that they already got that tribe? Even if they don't got any other tribe. See, you can't just show up and say, hey, I'm the Messiah. They've got to be able to tell what tribe. So that's why I always thought, how's that going to happen when the temple was destroyed, all of the records were destroyed. No, they can't tell what tribe they're from. But today, now the Jews are saying, oh, I'm from this tribe or that tribe. And a lot of it has to do with the DNA tracking and other tests, I guess, that they have. Anyway, so you got the Antichrist. He opposes Christ, and he's going to make people worship him. Now, he's going to make a covenant with Israel, and that is what begins the tribulation period. When the Antichrist makes a covenant with Israel, as it says, I believe in Jeremiah, refers to, or Isaiah, refers to it as a covenant with hell. And that's going to begin the tribulation period. When did the prophetic clock start to tick? Anybody knows? When did it stop ticking? Okay, you have the prophetic clock. If you think about the book of Daniel and all the prophecies, once Israel was dispersed, or once the Gentile world powers have taken over, starting with Babylon, you have Babylon, Medes and Persia, Greece, and Rome. The prophetic clock, in a sense, stopped ticking because everything is based around Israel. Once Israel became a nation again, and basically time period of the Gentiles in some ways is finished. Because now Israel is not, it's a nation again, and it's not under any other nation. The prophetic clock started to tick again. That was in 1948. That's when the World Council of Churches also were established. In 1948. That's when you had the European Union also started in 1948. The same year that Israel became a nation, the prophetic clock starts to tick again, in a sense. But there's still been some extra time given until the actual rapture takes place. Now, when the rapture takes place, I'm not saying when the rapture takes place, that means that the tribulation is going to begin right after that. But the tribulation period, it may, maybe shortly after, but it's going to officially begin. The 7-year clock for the tribulation is going to start to tick right at the covenant. And at the halfway point, he's going to make a covenant with Israel, and the religious Jews are going to be happy. And the secular Jews are going to be happy. He's going to make he's going to be allies with them. They never have allies with a European leader like this that promises to protect them. And then, of course, there's going to be a battle, the Ezekiel 38 and 39 battle. I mean, it may happen before this, but a lot of people feel it's going to happen right close to the middle time period. That's what's going to cause the beast to put his headquarters in Jerusalem, because they're going to wage war on Israel. All these nations, you're going to have a coalition of nations, Gog and Magog from the north, a coalition of nations from the south that will be the Islamic nations. Some people believe that's going to be the end of Islam, because they're going to lose in their jihad, their religious jihad. And they're going to lose because God is going to wipe them out. They're going to be just wiped out from the sky. Some believe nuclear warfare or whatever, or however God does it. But if you read Ezekiel 38 and 39, it sounds like that's a nuclear war. Because the fallout in Ezekiel 39 is the same way today. If you was to have a nuclear, how to clean up nuclear fallout, if you had a manual, because I have a manual, because sometimes, I never know when I'm going to have to clean out nuclear fallout. So I have a manual at home. I don't. I'm trying to wake you up. Everybody do that. Or just go to sleep. That's okay. You can read the notes. You can look online there. Go to sleep. Let's take a nap. It's okay. Samuel heard the Lord in his sleep. Anyway. I forget where I was.
Nuclear fallout.
Yeah, nuclear fallout. So if you read Ezekiel 39, it's the same way these manuals talk about how to clean up after, like you see the bone, and then you have to put the sign, and someone with all the gear comes, and then they're going to clean it up, and it's going to take so long to clean everything up. So it could be a nuclear war, whatever. But Islam will be wiped out at that point. They're going to see that, I think we're on the losing side. They're going to catch the hand, I believe. And Gog, Magog, they're all going to be wiped out. But what's going to happen is the Antichrist is going to move into Jerusalem. When he does that, he's going to turn against the Jews. He's going to go into the temple, and he's going to do the same thing that Antiochus, the Syrian leader, did in the book the book of Daniel. Antiochus Epiphanes, if you remember him, he was a man who was a Syrian leader, and he hated the Jews. He had many of them killed. One day he was out to the war, and they thought he lost, and they were celebrating. He got so upset. He came in, and he started killing Jews left and right. And he just started torturing, killing them, doing a lot of horrible things to them. And then he went to the temple. He desecrated the temple, and he put he boiled a pig, and he splashed all the pig guts and all the from cooking the pig, defiling the temple, set up an image to Jupiter, made them worship it. If they didn't worship it, he had them killed. So that's what it says, what Jesus says in Matthew 24, referring to Daniel chapter 9 about Daniel chapter 11 about the abomination of desolation. It's an abomination. The Antichrist is going to do that very thing. Antiochus Epiphanes, the Syrian ruler in the book of Daniel, is a type of Antichrist. The Antichrist made a covenant with them. They had a relative time of peace for the first 3.5 years of the tribulation period. And then when that time of war takes place, then the Antichrist is going to defend them. And they're like, wow, man, this guy's defending us because they're allies. And then he's going to move in, and he's going to be in Jerusalem. The temple has already been built, and they're so happy about that. But he's going to go into the temple, and he's going to defile it. And he's going to set up himself to be worshipped as God. That is going to happen at the midway point of the tribulation period, as the devil is now confined to the earth. Now, the devil is right now, he's not confined. I mean, the Bible says walking about his roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour, but he's not confined like he will be during this time. In fact, there's going to be a lot of demons that are going to be unleashed upon the earth during the tribulation period. And these are the demons that the Bible describes that were sent to a place, some people refer to it as Tartarus, some people refer to it as a bottomless pit. They were chained up. It describes this in the book of Jude. It describes this in the book of 2 Peter. And it talks about these demons that were chained up during the time period of Genesis chapter 6. Why? Because they crossed boundaries. They came down and intermingled. That's why I take that point of view. Not everybody takes that point of view. Because I'm thinking, if you don't take that point of view, then why is it that only those demons got chained up? And they're going to be, not all demons are chained up. There's demons all around. There's demons all around. I mean, let us not be ignorant of spiritual warfare. The Bible says we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against spiritual wickedness in high places. Well, these demons that have been in Tartarus from the time of Genesis chapter 6, or the bottomless pit rather, I like to refer to this, the Bible refers to it as that. Those demons are going to be unleashed during the tribulation period. And they're so mad because they've been chained up all that time period. So they're going to be out on parole.
Don't give them an application for rent.
So that's in chapter 13, the beast out of the sea, the beast out of the earth. That's the false prophet, the false religious leader. He looked like a lamb, but he speaks like a dragon. He looked religious, but he speaks like a devil. He caused the whole world to worship the Antichrist. He controls a global economy, a world government, and a world religion. Do we kind of see that going on right now? Yep. You know, globalists. That's why a lot of people hated Trump, because he's a nationalist. That's why a lot of people hate Benjamin Netanyahu, because he's a nationalist. There's a few countries that have nationalist leaders, but the rest are globalists. We have a lot of globalist people in politics today. And globalists, they're wanting global control. And so that's why open borders, they want to, that's why it's not an accident. It's not like they're dumb. Right. They have a plan, but they want all the immigrants to come in. You know, they have a plan for all of this. They want a one world government. They want a one world system. They want a one world economy. You think they're giving us stimulus money because they want to? No, they're trying to crash the dollar. I mean, they're just giving money left and right. And a little bit only goes to us. A lot of money goes all over the place. Why? Because they're getting payback, kickbacks, and all that. They're giving them money, getting this, but they're trying to, they're basically crashing the dollar. You can't just keep printing money.
Right.
Yeah, let's just give out let's just give out $5 trillion. Oh yeah, I get on to have $1,200. Yeah, I'll spend it. No problem. 10% to the Lord. And you know, I was wanting to wonder. I think I was on the mainland. I was in Omaha when this came. You know, when we got our stimulus money, and I thought, if everybody in our church gets a stimulus, I wonder what 10% is. You know, I was trying to calculate it, and I was going to see. I wonder if everybody tithed, at least, on their stimulus, you know?
Yeah.
I still wonder that, but I don't know. I don't check the money that much, so it was just a thought. You know what I was gonna say? I was gonna tell, hey, you know what we should do? We should have like a stimulus fundraiser. Hey, let's get some of the stimulus money and let's start like a building fund, you know? I was going to do that, but then I was on the mainland, and, you know, I came back, and I just thought about it now. Anyway, so next stimulus money we'll start a building fund. Anyway, crashing the dollar. Do you know that the Catholic Church has been very soft nowadays against terrorists and against Islam? They've been also very soft against homosexuality. They're wanting to get all the churches together. Main thing. Now, if you're going to come together, a lot of people have this thought. Let's just all come together as one church. Hey, that might sound good, but at the expense of what? Now, if everyone had the same doctrine, everyone had the same beliefs and all that, then there could be a lot better, more of unity. But then when you have so much doctrinal differences, it's really, really hard. What you have to do is you have to drop things. So they're going to drop everything, except they're just going to say, hey, you know what? Why don't we just do good, love one another, be nice, that's it. Do you know that's exactly what they're saying now, the Pope? The Pope is saying exactly that right now. Bringing everybody together in one ecumenical movement. One world religion. One world government, globalist. One world economy. It's already happening. And so what is the false prophet going to do? He's going to point people to the devil. That's what the Holy Spirit does. Points people to Christ. And this is the Satanic Trinity. You got the feast, the feast. The beast, the false prophet. If you say false prophet and beast fast, you might say feast. Me and my kids didn't get their sleep. They're supposed to be laughing at that. You got the beast, the false prophet, and the dragon. The devil, the Antichrist, and the false prophet. So you have the Satanic Trinity, the counterfeit, Antichrist. And then you have the mark of the beast in chapter 13. Remember chapter 13, a lot of people say bad luck, right?
Yeah.
We don't believe in luck, but 13 bad luck number of bad. Yeah. So that's the number of all this happening. So you can remember that. Verse 17, verse 18, the mark of the beast. You remember those codes, like when you scan something, it has those barcodes? The first number is a 6, the middle number is a 6, the last number is a 6. Did you know that?
Wow.
And there's going to be some kind of mark. You already know they have the technology already. I mean, years ago, we probably kind of like, oh, that sounds kind of like interesting, or kind of sounds sci-fi-ish. Now it's happening already. Right. I mean, you're already using the card for everything, right? Deep, 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 deep. Pretty soon, hey, when you lose your card, why don't you just put it on your hand? Deep, deep, deep.
Yeah, I can't never use that, right?
Yeah, you already got it on your phone, right? Beep, beep, beep. Hey, why don't you have your phone in your hand? Hello? Hello? Hello?
Wow.
It'll be hard to say, oh, how can you answer my call? I didn't have my phone with me.
Whoa.
Isn't it in your hand? Oh, yeah.
Oh, boy, that's scary.
Judgments, chapter 14 through 18. Judgment pronounced upon Babylon. This is the city of Babylon. There's going to be another judgment that's going to be on the Babylonian system. There's going to be the city of Babylon. Then there's also there's going to be religious Babylon, and which I believe is probably the Catholic Church into the future. I'm not trying to say like all but that's going to be what happens eventually. It seems like they're going towards that. And then you're going to have political Babylon, judgment upon them. The vile judgments, chapter 15 and 16. 7 more angels come down, one at a time. They will pour out the bowls, or the vile judgments. Bowl number 1, plagues. Bowl number 2, the seas. All the seas were poisoned and became... See, what was happening with the seals is there was only a percentage, like 1/3. Now it's going to be everything. So the first is there's going to be plagues on the earth. The seas are going to be poisoned, become as blood, the blood of a dead man, and every living soul dies in the sea. Bowl number 3. Some say the vile judgment, bowl judgment. The rivers, verse 4 through 7 of chapter 15. All the rivers become as the blood. Then the sun, men are scorched. But in the trumpets was 1/3, and now all the world. Bowl number 5, the kingdom of beasts will be wiped out. And in darkness, people will still not repent, but blaspheme God. Bowl number 6, the Euphrates River dries up to prepare the way for the kings of the east that are going to come to Armageddon. We see the word Armageddon mentioned only one time in the Bible, in this chapter. And bowl number 7, widespread destruction, verse 17 and 18 of chapter 16. And it says the words, it is done, or it's too late. The message on the two sides of the scroll is a two-sided message. The message on the outside of the scroll is bad news, you lose. For those who are saved, it's going to be good news. We win. Both messages are announced and proclaimed in the book of Revelation. Bad news for those that are not believers. Good news for those that are believers. We're going to be with Jesus forever. Then in chapter 17, we see the fall of religious Babylon. Babylon's description as the great harlot refers to the spiritual prostitution and fornication that categorizes the apostate church of the tribulation, which is unfaithful and rejects the Lord Jesus Christ as her husband. Great refers to the system which will reach its zenith after the removal of the true church because of the rapture. And this is going to go on in many forms. Roman Catholicism, liberal Protestantism, the cults, etc. But after the church is gone, or perhaps even before it's gone, they will unite, become one great ecumenical religious system that sits on many waters. So it's the unification of all the world, all the nations. The nations are religiously united and politically affiliated with each other through the power and control of the religious system, and its head, of course, will be the false prophet. The apostate system, which will already have spread its tentacles all over the world, will quickly unite and become the one world church, and it will be destroyed in chapter 17 by God. A one-time event. Bam, done deal. Then in chapter 18, you see the fall of political Babylon. There are definite similarities between Babylon as described in Revelation. Hello, hello, hello.
Sorry.
Oh, that wasn't Pastor Mark's phone? So, Revelation chapter 18. Both religious Babylon and political Babylon are under the rule of the Antichrist and have ruling queens. Both are filled with blasphemy, both hate believers, and both shed blood. Both are associates with kings in fornication, and both are under judgment, and both are destroyed. But there's also differences. Religious Babylon, the symbol is a harlot, a woman. It's identified with Rome. It's a woman, a prostitute, a mother, guilty of religious abominations, and will be destroyed by a political power that previously supported her. Political Babylon is a great city, identified with a port city. It's guilty of greed and self-indulgence. Some people even believe this is a reference to the United States. And some people say that you don't see the United States in prophecy. Some people say, well, it could be the lions of Tarshish, because Tarshish is if it's referring to Spain, then it wouldn't be. If it's reference to England, then it could be. We could be the lions, the cubs, or whatever. I don't know. But some say, no, we are in prophecy. Yeah, we're the political Babylon. I've heard that, and it sounded very interesting. I don't know. Both are judged by God, though. Then in chapter 19, the return of Jesus Christ. You see in verse 7, the marriage supper of the Lamb. The church, see, when the tribulation period is going on the earth, in heaven, you have the rapture of the church. Then you have the judgment seat of Christ, and then you have the marriage supper of the Lamb. And then we're gonna, after that, after the marriage supper, we're gonna be, I guess, going on our honeymoon. We come down with Jesus as his bride, and we're going to come down to the battle of Armageddon, and we will be victorious. We won't even have to fight. We're just spectators. We're riding on white horses. So the bride of the church receives white garments, which is the righteousness of the saints. Then we have celebrate the marriage supper of the Lamb. The marriage takes place in heaven. And we will return with the bridegroom, just like a Jewish wedding. And Jesus Christ rides on the white horse, leads the way, and this is the climax of Revelation. He comes to the battle with the word of his mouth. He speaks, and the army of the Antichrist is annihilated. The beast and the false prophet are cast alive in the lake of fire, and Satan is chained up for 1,000 years in the bottomless pit. And then after the 1,000 years are over, the Bible says this, after the 1,000 years are over, then the devil is going to be, he's going to be sent to the lake of fire, and the Bible says where the beast and the false prophet are. They've been there for 1,000 years. See, some people believe that when someone goes to hell, they're just burned up. Well, how long would that take? I mean, they're there for 1,000 years, they're still there. The Bible says it's forever. Then in verse 14 and 15, we see the battle of Armageddon. The armies follow Jesus, which is the church. Those of us that were in at the marriage supper of the Lamb. It is no longer the church rejected, persecuted, and martyred. It is the church triumphant. And then in verse 19 and 21 of chapter 19, destruction of all the armies of the earth. And in verse 20, the judgment on the beast and the false prophet, as they are going to be in the lake of fire. Chapter 20, we see the millennium. Satan is bound for 1,000 years, like I mentioned, verse 1 through 3. Saints will be reigning with Christ. We are going to reign with Christ on the millennial kingdom. And there's going to be the heavenly Jerusalem. Some people believe that we are going to, because we already have our glorified bodies, that in some ways, we could be in a glorified state. We could also be in a more physical type state. I don't know. The Bible's not, real clear on how that's going to be. There's probably going to be different ways that we travel or whatever. But when we are reigning with Him on the millennial kingdom, He's going to be on the throne of David, right? Now that's going to be a literal throne. When the Bible has already said in Matthew, when Jesus was born, that He's going to rule on the throne of His father David, that didn't happen when He came to earth the first time, right? He didn't. I don't remember talking about Him ruling on the throne, right? The Bible says foxes have holes, birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man have nowhere to lay His head, right?
That's right.
But He's going to rule and reign one day. So what is that a reference to? That's a reference to the millennial kingdom. So if you take the millennial kingdom as an allegory, well, where's the ruling and reigning of Christ? And that was a literal, when that never happened yet. So this is when it's going to happen during the millennial kingdom. And we're going to rule with Him for 1,000 years. Some people believe how faithful you were here is going to depend upon your position in the kingdom and what we're going to have to do or get to do. Satan is bound for 1,000 years. He's going to be loose for a season, and there are going to be some people that follow him. It's going to be the last war. World War IV or 5, depends how you count them. Then after that, you're going to see the great white throne judgment in chapter 20, verse 11 through 15. So you're going to see the rapture. So from us today, we're going to see the rapture of the church. We're going to be a part of the judgment seat of Christ, the marriage supper of the Lamb, the return and triumph at the battle of Armageddon. We're going to rule and reign with Him for 1,000 years, and then we're going to serve Him for all eternity. The best is yet to come.
Amen.
We might not have much down here. That's okay. We're not going to be here much longer. Then we are going to be, as the Bible describes in chapter 21 and 22, the New Jerusalem. Let me describe for you a little bit the New Jerusalem. The city is going to be huge. It is a 1,500-mile cube.
Whoa.
That is like going from the West Coast to maybe the middle of the United States. So let's say you're in California. You're going to go to Nebraska.
Right.
Okay. And then if you take that same amount, you go from Nebraska all the way down to Texas. And then from Texas, you go straight over. I guess at that point, you'll be in Mexico, right? So, but not only is it like this way, it's also this way.
Whoa, dude.
1,500 miles. It's a cube.
Right.
A huge cube. So if you were to take this 1,500-mile cube and you were to give each level a 1,000-foot ceiling, that's a high ceiling.
Yeah, 1,000.
You know, like if you have a ceiling that's 16 foot, man, that's tall.
Yeah.
Can you imagine the ceiling being 1,000 foot? If the ceilings of this cube was 1,000 foot, you know how many floors you would have?
Oh, man.
7,920.
What?
Imagine the elevator going up to.
Whoa. That's a lot of floors.
The landmass. Now, we don't know if it's going to be divided that way, okay? But if it is, the area space that you would get, and God, He could, just think about, you look at the Kola Mountains. Some people say when they come here, it's the most beautiful mountain they've ever seen. It's a beautiful mountain. But is it straight? See, we build straight. Well, we should try to, right? But if you look at a building, you go down to Waikiki, you see these buildings, they're like straight for the most part. They might have a couple angles here, but you got to pretty much build straight, right? God builds crooked. Look how much more beautiful it is. Imagine a city where God builds straight.
Whoa. Perfect.
How awesome it's going to be. The landmass of this city, if it's going to be divided up into 1,000-foot ceilings, would cover 89 Earth's landmass.
Wow, that's a lot.
89 Earth's landmass.
Wow.
And really, in this Earth, people say it's overpopulated.
No, not even.
Drive through Utah and tell me that it's overpopulated. You might think that if you're in New York City, but if you drive from just 30, 45 minutes outside of New York City, it's nothing but deer and grass and roads. If there are 4 billion people in the New Jerusalem, and you're to divide the land up, each person could get 2,800 acres of land
Whoa.
each.
Each person. 4 billion.
4 billion people. That's how much land you'd have in that size. That's just in the New Jerusalem.
Wow. That's crazy.
Heaven is a place reserved for God's people. Those who have trusted in Jesus Christ. The curse will finally be lifted and creation will be restored to God's original intent, and it is a new creation, a recreation filled with a lot of no mores. Not s'mores, no mores.
Mores.
Maybe they'll have some mores up there, I don't know.
Some mores.
But there's going to be some no mores. No more first heaven and first earth. It's going to be done away with. No more sea. In fact, that's where the beast came from, right? That's where the storms come from, too. No more sea. No more beast. No more barrier. No more tears. No more death. No more mourning or crying. No more pain. No more curse.
Whoa.
No more temple. The temple was designed. He would reside with his people and represent the presence of God. And in order to get to the presence of God, you had to have a priesthood, you had to have offered sacrifices, you had to have the veil, and you had to go through it all. You see, we won't have to do that. There will be no need for that. There's ultimately going to be no need for the temple because we're going to be able to have a relationship directly with Him. For we're going to see Him as He is, and we'll be like Him in that glorified state in that sense. There's going to be no more sun and no more moon. There will be no need of that kind of light because the glory of God will shine and be the light thereof. There's going to be no more barrier. The gates of heaven are never going to be shut. Revelation 21:27 says, "And there shall no wise enter into it anything that defileth, neither whatsoever worketh abomination or maketh a lie, but they which are written in the Lamb's book of life." Don't get too stressed out. We're not gonna be here long. Colossians 3:1-4. If you then be risen with Christ, seek those things which are above, where Christ sitteth on the right hand of God. Set your affection on things above, not on things of the earth. For ye are dead, and your life is hid with Christ in God. When Christ, who is our life, shall appear, then shall ye also appear with Him in glory. Closing remarks. You're going to hear words from Jesus. An invitation, a warning not to add or subtract, and in the closing remarks. The story of the Bible ends in a garden, and it begins in a garden and ends in an eternal city. And in the middle stands the cross that made all the difference. Does this sound like the... Would you say this? Look at Revelation chapter 22. Verse 20. He which testified these things saith, surely I come quickly. Amen. Even so come, Lord Jesus. If you wrote this, wouldn't you say, please come now? The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ be with you all. Amen. Until He does come again, He has given us His grace, God's riches at Christ's expense. All right, that's the book of Revelation overview. Would you bow your heads and close your eyes? With heads bowed and eyes closed, no looking around. The first thing is most important. You don't